Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 11th of January, comes to you from Singapore. And really, not much change in the markets in the last 24 hours. If we look at currencies, very little change here. Same with stock markets, slight falls. In the US and Europe, and really just slight gains today in Asia. So we're not really seeing any massive moves here. So quite a benign environment just on the short term. Dollar index still continues to be below the cloud. We do have a new upside target developing here of 104.50, but we need to move above 102.50 to activate that. So, and we do have a downside target. So we're just at this sort of testing moment in the short term. Will we break through the cloud? But of course, the strength in the longer term is there. So that's really this dollar is just pausing for thought right now. If we take a look at the euro, we've again seen a little bit of a recovery here of late, but we are just now coming below the cloud. Normally, I like to see 3 bars below the cloud, so it's a bit early to say this is properly in bearish territory, but it is looking like it's tailing off, and we are just starting to move lower. Of course, the medium and long-term chart's still pretty bearish, and these targets hanging over us. Watch for any new thrust targets developing on the euro to the downside in the short term. And if you're really watching the currency, keep an eye on the 1-minute charts. Looking at the yen, we're seeing the dollar just falling away again against the yen. So at the moment, it just is a little bit of dollar weakness creeping in. Sterling, of course, had a really bad start to the week. It stabilized a bit yesterday, and we are just teetering along the floor at this 121.50 level. We really are. This is the case of just a move down, another sideways move. Will we see another move down? We've now got quite a big downside thrust column here. That's going to give us a target well below 120 now, and we have got targets into sort of 120, 117 area. So really starting to see sterling looking vulnerable again. We didn't quite activate this downside target to below parity 99.50, but it does look like that will be activated if we see lower moves, and the same on this longer term chart. So any renewed weakness in sterling is going to be pretty bad for the medium to long term chart, so we need to just be aware of that. Looking at sterling against the euro, we see that euro did have quite a big move with that sterling move down, but we are just seeing now that coming off as well. So for the moment, we are bullish on the short term here for the euro. But interestingly, sterling is just the start of the week has had a big impact on that chart. If looking at the Swiss franc, quite a good proxy for sterling, because Swiss franc is a relatively benign currency. We see here that we've had this little, we had the fall away, a little bit of recovery, but still pretty bearish, and some quite worrying downside targets against the Swissy. And that was also showing through on the Australian dollar. So we see that as well, where we're just below the clouds here. Looking at the stock markets, interestingly, the market really didn't move much last night. S&P sitting at 2268. So holding this high 2200 area, 2300 is the next sort of level for us to break through. 2280 was where we got to the day before yesterday. So slight sell-off, but we have got these upside targets activated. So US markets looking pretty bullish indeed. Nasdaq did manage to just go up 0.2%, so we did see a slight increase there, but nothing major happening in terms of the Nasdaq market. We're seeing this big thrust here. Quite interesting that we are just gunning for these new targets, about 2.5% upside. And the Russell, having had a bad day the day before, actually was the strongest market again last night, just cycling in there at 1%. So the small to medium cap on the 2000 index having an effect there, so that was quite powerful. Dow still struggling to get to this 20,000 level. Everyone keeps talking about it, but it does look like just a matter of time. Again, we're seeing here the sideways move. As soon as we break that, the Dow will run. When we do go through 20,000, based on this pattern, we should run quite significantly. 2,000 move up here, sideways, potentially another 2,000 move up, just the rule of thumb that you go up again by that amount. And we're seeing 2161 as the new target. That's up 1.5%, but we really do see targets to as high as 23,000 here, and that's consistent with that next leg up as well. So quite significant. Futures down very slightly in Asia this morning. We're just seeing the US futures down very slightly, 0.2%. So it's not like we're seeing any signs of a very strong opening in the US yet, but we need to wait and see what happens when Europe kicks in. We're seeing here also the FTSE looking very strong still, now 7,251. So really continuing to make these new highs, looking like a very good year ahead for FTSE. Only up 0.2% yesterday, and the FTSE mid 250 barely changed, up 0.01%. So just holding steady there really, but the charts again looking really good, bullish on all time frames at the moment. The DAX just fell away very slightly. As I said at the start, very benign moves here. We're just not seeing a lot of change, so that's pretty significant. And then if we look at the Hang Seng, we are seeing just here again up 2/3% this morning, so we are just seeing some strength kicking in. So that Asian market's just continuing their run. Not big moves today, but we are just seeing a continued move in the market. So all looking pretty good. Medium-term chart's still a bit worrying, but the short-term chart's better. Same for India, really. Indian market not so good in the medium term. Long-term charts finding support on the cloud, and the short-term 2.5% upside, so that's looking pretty good. Australia had a pretty poor showing the day before last, having had a great run this year. Now just putting in a move about 0.5% this morning, so we are just seeing the Australian market continuing to run bullish on all three time frames, so still looking good. Brent crude and WTI had a bad start to the week. We sort of saw this move through the cloud, so we are bearish on the short term. We do have downside target potential of about 3%. We are just seeing a bit of a pullback here, but we are in the strong time of year, so it will be interesting to see. We've still got these upside targets into the 70s, but we're pulling back before we rise again. Keep an eye out on those 1-minute charts. Watch for another new buying thrust off lows on crude, and we're seeing that on WTI as well. So we're bearish in the short term at the moment. We need to see a move back above $53 on the cloud there for that to turn bullish. So just be aware that that is the level there. US nat gas just started to turn bullish again on the short term, so we're starting to move into a phase where we're bullish on all three time frames. We've got 374 as a target, but we need to move above 331, 332 for that to be activated. I've talked about gold a little bit lately. Precious metals have had quite a good start to the year, both gold and silver. Just pausing for breadth at the moment, but we've got this 1192 target, and actually on the 1-minute chart we have even got targets above 1200. So gold looking pretty good at the moment, and so just worth keeping an eye out on that. US Treasury yields just falling back from this sort of mid 240s area to now 236. We did get above 250 there for a while, and we are just in this bearish territory, but we are finding support here on the yield chart and activating new upside targets, so we do see back into the 240s is looking pretty likely. Just to look at some bellwethers, we mentioned that Nasdaq was up very slightly. Apple was one of the performers that was just slightly positive yesterday. Again, no major big changes in these tech stocks at the moment. Apple bullish on all time horizons. We've got a 4% upside potential on to 124 as the target. So Apple looking pretty good. Taking a look at Microsoft as another bellwether. Of course, in the Dow 30 as well, so always a good stock to just keep an eye out on. Microsoft has been making new highs earlier towards the end of the year last year, but just bearish at the moment. But we're seeing these upside targets kicking in again as well. And then we've talked about Facebook as well. You know, they have gone up several percent in the last few days, and just again paused for breath last night. But this is a stock that seems to be running at the moment, and coming off those lows, looking like a bit of a triple bottom here, recovering on that weekly chart, and a lot of upside targets here to play for. So really quite an interesting chart, looking good again short term. That's it for today. Tomorrow I'm back in London. Until then, happy charting. See you then.